In our modern agile workplaces, there's an ever-increasing emphasis from employers and from employees on the importance of emotional intelligence, often over academic qualifications. And really, why is that? Well, more often than not, the importance of emotional intelligence really should not go unappreciated, number one. But, the ability to understand and manage our emotions is the first step in realizing our true potential. How can we achieve meaningful progress, development, and growth when we don't really recognize or maybe even acknowledge where we're starting from? So, yesterday, for example, I had a conversation, and within that conversation, it was the individual's first time sort of exploring the intersection of emotional intelligence and leadership success and workplace success. And in this exploration, which is a discovery call when someone begins to explore working with me and working with emotional intelligence as the foundation to achieving their goals. They were describing situations that they were encountering. And for me, there's no better way to demonstrate for someone the power of emotional intelligence than in the situations they're describing to stop and do some coaching, do some work around emotional intelligence in that moment so they can see immediately the impact of making the connection between how their emotions drive their behavior, and then very briefly exploring the associations underneath those emotions. And so what happened was, after the description of what occurred, I paused and I asked very candidly, what were you afraid of in that situation? Because if we have two primary emotions, fear and love, what it sounds like is you were operating out of fear. It doesn't really sound like you were operating out of love. So what were you afraid of? And that upward glance, which means we're thinking, but we're also visualizing the space we were in, was a telltale sign that they were able to put themselves back in that position and really think about, what was I afraid of? And then articulate it out loud. I was afraid of catching someone who's been a top performer and asking them to meet expectations and them getting upset or them leaving. And sort of the storytelling went on and on and on of what those fears were. Whether rational or irrational at this point is irrelevant. The deeper associations then is, well, then how did that fear, the emotional state, and those stories then influence your behavior? And what we see in a direct line is then we see tolerance of toxic behaviors in the workplace. We see leaders who then allow things to happen even though those things are in conflict with expectations of behaviors or performance. And the more and more in workplaces we do not hold people accountable, we allow things to happen, we tolerate poor behavior, we tolerate toxicity, the more we are giving permission for those things to happen by anyone. And it isn't just the individual that suffers, it is more so that every other person around them suffers because they see the injustice, the unfairness, the double standards that exist. And these are the things that time over time leads to death by 1,000 paper cuts. It leads to lower engagement. When we look across the globe at engagement scores or average engagement scores of employees in work, and we see, upward of 89% of employees are disengaged in the workplace, it's like that is a tremendous amount of money that is being paid for nothing, for disengaged work. Can we only imagine for a moment what would happen if we were to understand our emotions, regulate them, and then step into, as leaders, the conversations we need to be having in order to have a workplace that flourishes 360 degrees? Can we just imagine what that would be like? Even 10% better. But the goal isn't 10% better, is it? It's to be all the way 100% engaged in the workplace. And it is possible. And the first step towards doing that is development in emotional intelligence.